Hey, I'm Dave. Welcome to Shop Talk. Today we're going to talk about something that's been with us for decades, quietly lurking in the corners of every Windows machine since the dawn of time, and that's drive letters. Why did your hard drive start with C:? And what happened to A: and B:? And more importantly, why are we still using them in 2025? You see, most modern operating systems don't do this. On Linux or Mac OS, your files live in a big hierarchical tree. Everything starts with the root with slashes instead of colons. /home/Dave/desktop makes perfect sense in the Unix world. But on Windows, you've always got a drive letter, and it's that big old C:, and it's doing a lot more heavy lifting than you might think. So where did drive letters even come from? Well, for that, we've got to go all the way back to CP/M, the control program for microcomputers, which was one of the earliest operating systems for personal computers. CP/M used drive letters to represent floppy disks, and then when MS-DOS came along in the early 80s, it borrowed a lot of CP/M's design and conventions, including, you guessed it, the whole drive letter concept. So back in those days, A: was the first floppy drive and B: was the second. And then when hard drives started showing up, we needed a new designation, so C: became the default for the first hard disk. And that was fine when you only had one or two drives and no network shares, but as systems evolved, things got messy. Now fast forward a few decades. Microsoft tried to clean this up with NTFS mount points. That's where you can mount a drive into a folder path instead of assigning it a letter. It's a more flexible system, and it's more in line with how Unix-like systems work. But guess what? Most people have never even heard of NTFS mount points. And the reason is compatibility. Because a massive amount of Windows software just assumes the presence of drive letters. Some apps hardcode C: paths. Installers just look for D when they can't find C. Network shares sometimes get mapped to Z, or Z if you prefer. And heaven help you if your machine boots from anything but C:. Things start to break, and they break in subtle, frustrating ways. So why doesn't Microsoft just rip the Band-Aid off and switch to a unified file system like Linux? Put simply, legacy. That word explains a lot of decisions in Windows, because compatibility is king. Microsoft is supporting decades of software, drivers, backup systems, deployment tools, all of which expect drive letters. Changing that would mean breaking a huge swath of the ecosystem. But if you dig into Windows, you'll find that it can work without drive letters. You can mount volumes directly into empty folders or even reference them by their GUID-based volume path. It's just not something that most users ever see or even know about. And that's probably by design. The UI still shows a friendly A through Z because, well, people expect it. So there you go. The humble drive letter, a 40-year-old artifact that just refuses to die, and now you know why. But that's just the first of many interesting questions we're going to answer tonight with you. So I'm joined now by my co-host Glenn, who has curated a curious collection of compelling questions. Is that alliteration when they don't all start with the same letter? I don't know. You decide. But what's our first question there, Glenn? What do we got?
Alliteration is based on sound, so that must be, right?
I think so. I'm not certain.
It's got to be. What have I got? Well, there's a little thing that somebody hit 1 million subs. So, yeah, there's a couple things about that.
Main channel. We had 1 million subs on the Dave's Garage channel. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And the Mesmerizer did not crash. It's able to show 7 digits. I never tested that. So.
It's now been tested. We're going to start with a question from your million subscriber episode. So just here for the lols says, shouldn't it be 1024K subs? Congratulations.
Well, it should be... Yeah, I'm trying to think. 1024K, yes. Not 1024,000,
no.
But 1024K. So 1024 times 1024. That would make sense to me.
There you go.
Do
you happen to know what 1 million is in hex or no?
Not offhand, no.
Not offhand, yeah. Binary?
Sorry, I don't do conversion. No.
Oh, come on. There's a monkey. Dance. Next question here from Richard Wernst. He says, the last part with the opening scene graphics, were you a redhead, as the comic character seems to indicate?
My hair was mostly kind of blondish brown, but my beard was actually quite red. So yeah, if you see the older photos of me, although my GitHub photo it is an older photo of me, but it's black and white, so that doesn't help. But yeah, in older photos, my beard's pretty red, so it always kind of was. Not anymore.
Was your dad a redhead?
No, my dad had jet black hair.
Oh, wow, okay. Yeah.
My mom was blonde, Swedish, so maybe somewhere in between blonde and black.
Mix of the two.
Yeah.
Michael Flood says, congratulations on the 1 million subs. He's got a couple of questions. He says, why is he so enthralled by your channel when he can barely understand 10% of the content?
Well, just listening to it makes you feel smarter. That's what I think.
That's why I'm here. He then goes on to say, I suspect that co-host Glenn occasionally shares my bemusement based on his occasional puzzled expression. And I think I replied to him, occasionally.
Yeah, but you ask good questions, so you fill in the blanks for people, I'm sure.
I feel a great empathy, and I sort of represent the folks who find this interesting, but I'm not fully understanding all of it or sometimes much of it, but it is fascinating for me, so I'm glad others enjoy it for the same reason. Vacation pictures. Did you ever publish the code for the Lava Tiki umbrella?
You bet. It's on nightdriverled.com, along with the code to the Mesmerizer that's behind Glen there, that LED matrix. It all runs on the same code. So the umbrella is the same program as that Mesmerizer behind you. It just has different pound defiance to do different things in different situations. So grab the code and play with it, nightdriverled.com. Or go to eBay and order yourself a Mesmerizer and play with it.
There you go. Then you'll get lots. And the original Tiki umbrella that you had an accident or fell into some disrepair?
I've been through a couple, yeah. Okay. The wind eventually, they'll leave them out, and then the wind comes along and blows it over, and they'll survive maybe once or twice, but then once LEDs are kinked and bent or wires ripped, I started again fresh, and then the second one got ruined, and I'm like, I hate building anything for the second time. So unless you're improving it each time, that could be fun, but if you just got to redo work, if you're already happy with it and it got damaged, that sucks for me. So I never built a third, but...
So that's it. So there's no more Tiki umbrellas in your backyard then?
Well, there is a company in Florida that makes Triad or something. They make really cool umbrellas. And I'd like to get a hold of them and have them give me an umbrella, which I will then build into a Tiki Fire umbrella as a sponsored episode or something like that. But I haven't been able to get a hold of them. So
that'd be excellent. Christy5 says, your videos are always appreciated and deeply useful. And then goes on to ask a question that Michael Flood had as well. He says, I'm curious as to what the badge you're wearing on your lapel is.
Oh, that was a Task Manager pin. I don't have one here, I don't think. But
I think I put mine up there, so I'm not sure if...
There you go.
It's
Task Manager.
Can you see it? Yeah, you can sort of see it. Yep.
So I saw a calculator lapel pin years and years ago, and I thought, I want a Task Manager one. And there weren't any, so I had a batch produced, and so I've got a little bag of them.
A few of them, yeah. That's pretty neat. Another one that folks got a lot of attention. We're into the desktop AI stuff now. 172 Pilot says, what's up with the jacket? You going to a job interview?
No, I did the million subscriber episode on the same day, so I think it was all recorded on the same day. I wore a jacket for that.
Matt B asks about that when you were comparing the AI stuff there. Did you mean the Tesla P4? It says, best I can tell, the P40 has 24 gigabytes, where the P4 has 8.
Yeah, it probably was the P4. Okay. You're right.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No, I'm not.
My mistake.
Right. Matt might be right. Yeah,
Matt's right.
Yeah.
That's who I was apologizing to, not you.
Oh, sorry. Just look right through me to Matt. Yeah, he said. Yeah. William Heckman. What is the 4-bay SSD card at the timestamp at 12:09? I'm not sure the timestamp means anything to you, but
I don't know the actual part number offhand. You get it on Amazon, and it does not require that your slot support bifurcation. It's a few dollars more, but you can put it in any PCI 16 slot or even a lower slot, and it will work without having to turn on bifurcation. I think my motherboard does support it, but I kind of wanted the flexibility to put them anywhere, so that's why I went with that one.
Oh, okay. Excellent. Uncommon Sense Oz, an Australian here, says at 8:49 again, is the MD5 really sufficient to verify anything these days?
No, good catch. It's actually SHA-256. So I said MD5, but it's SHA-256.
Excellent. Glad we could clarify that. And then Insisto Sonokazume. 1 terabyte of RAM and the biggest DeepSeek, the 671 parameters that are so quantized, given it's about 400 gigabytes, that model still only does like 2 or 3 tokens per second. He says that's sad.
Well, it is, but remember, it's not using a GPU, and that's why we use GPUs for AI. So without the GPU memory big enough to hold it, it goes into RAM, and it's done by the CPU, and you can see the CPUs, they never could have trained it. Well, they could have, but they didn't. It would take forever to train it on a CPU, and if you could, then the execution of the model would be really slow running on a CPU, as you saw at 2 to 3 tokens a second on a pretty powerful CPU. So that is why we use GPUs for that workload if we can.
Yeah, the volume of memory is one part of it. It's the type of memory that's the more critical. Well, is it more critical?
Yeah, well,
it is more.
It's not so much the type of memory. It's HBM or whatever the GPU memory is. So it's faster generally, or has higher bit width access to it. But the main thing is that the CPU is not the ideal type of processor. The GPU can do many things in parallel, thousands and thousands of things in parallel, whereas a CPU can maybe do 100, on a big CPU.
So it's the processor, not the memory that's attached to the processor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes a bit more for me. Ethan's son, which M4 Mac has 512 gigabytes of RAM, please? I thought the M3 Ultra is the only Mac that supports that kind of memory.
No, the M4 Mac Mini can be had. Or, pardon me, Studio, not Mini. The M4 Studio.
Okay. And my keyboard just clunked on me here. I'm going to plug and replug. I got to get that fixed one of these days. Here's a big, longer question that's going to take me a little bit of effort to... So Rob Overholt says, okay, hey, Dave. So I tried out the biggest models he can fit, the 8 gig 3070 Ti, and was excited getting to use the models offline. He found the speed decent, but the quality not good enough. He used it mainly for coding, and then when DeepSeek came out and tanked the stock market, he got excited. But he ran it, the code it spit out wouldn't even run. He said some sound effect of a trumpet. Anyways, he always had run back to ChatGPT or Claude and Google 2.5. So he says, what's your coding experience with AI models? Any offline work good for you that you don't even need to go online? Do you feel the friendship vibe in models as well when you do it?
Well, I don't know about friendship vibe, but I am not impressed with the coding ability of the models that you can run locally. Like Gemini 2 or Gemma, Gemini 2.5 is an incredible coding model. Gemma 2.5, the one that you can download and run locally, is still a very impressive model, but not so much for coding. So I have not found a good one that I can run locally. I'm using Copilot in VS Code, and I'm generally using Claude Sonnet 4. I was using Gemini 2.5. Both are pretty impressive, but I think the win right now goes to Claude Sonnet 4, so that's what I've been using. But what I'd really wish, Grok seems really good, but there's no way to integrate it into Copilot to use it in an agent mode inside of VS Code, or at least no trivial way. I did try to set that up today, didn't have any luck. But it would be impressive. Claude Sonnet 4 is impressive, and Gemini 2.5 is pretty cool.
Okay.
But nothing local that I've found.
Yeah. Just doesn't support that kind of stuff. It needs more
it supports
access.
it. It's just not good. I don't know.
Right.
I couldn't tell you the technical reasons of why, because the models you can run locally are plenty big. They're just not as good.
DeHelson Mendonca, why are you using Olama, a command line system, when you can use LM Studio or a GUI-based sort of beautiful interface?
I'm using Open Web UI on top of Olama. I just don't necessarily... It doesn't add much to the presentation when I'm doing an episode on it, and it adds a layer of complexity. And how do you install that? And what's Docker? And how do I get that? And a bunch of extra questions for people. So instead of causing extra confusion, I keep it simple and just command line text only. But if you want to play with the RTX 6000 ADAs, I've got them set up right on the web now. So before it crashes, you can go to davepl.com/3000. Sign up for a free account and run your AI on my machine. See how it works. And once it dies, I won't put it back up again. But as long as it keeps running, I'll leave it up. So davepl.com/3000.
I was just going to say, you posted something like that on, I think, on your Facebook page or something.
I did post it on Facebook, yeah.
Yeah. And one guy piped in a comment. He said, "Oh, Dave, this is either really generous of you or really stupid." And then I said, "Maybe it's generously stupid."
Yeah.
You'll find out.
And that machine is also simultaneously training like 64 Tempest instances at the same time. But it's got 2 GPUs, so I think it's split pretty well. But it's a busy little box.
It's doing some heavy lifting.
Yeah.
All the time, right? Yeah. Not a lot of downtime for that guy. Uncommon Sense, Australia again. Is DeepSeek still the premier model? No, okay. I'm going to say, is it Premier or Premier? I'm not sure which country I'm talking with. Is DeepSeek still the premier model for local running in the non-commercial space?
I think Gemma 3 is probably better. But DeepSeek 671 billion, if you can run that one, is a bigger model. So you would expect it to be very good. But you should really look at the leaderboards for the AI, because my intuitive sense of what is good and not good is not all that accurate. So.
Yeah. And it's based on, tell me a story in some sense, right? Yeah. and a little bit of other playing around. Pappy Jack says, hey, Dave, or anyone else who knows, again in the general comments, do these local models come with the same restrictions as the ones that are running in the cloud? And again, specifically says, will the DeepSeek model still refuse to talk about Tiananmen Square when run locally?
No, you can ask it, and it will answer.
Okay.
So it's not nearly as limited as the one that was online that they presented. I'm not going to say that it's not tuned or trained, to be pro one way or to withhold information about certain events. But for the big one I tried, which was tell me about Tiananmen Square, it did. So,
my name's not Michael Caine, or it could be my name's not Michael Caine. Wouldn't the problem with the 8.1 gigabyte model and the P40 or P4 being that Olama would have offloaded probably 2 layers to the CPU or system RAM? Would that be dragging the whole thing down in speed?
You might be right. And I wondered about that later because I noticed what I did is I ran it and I saw the CPU or the GPU was busy. So I figured, hey, it must be running on the GPU. But if it splits layers and puts some on the CPU and some on the GPU, and I don't know to what extent Olama does that automatically. I thought you had to specifically split the layers up yourself, but maybe not. So if a bunch of it was pushed off to the CPU, that would explain why it was slower. Because it was kind of unreasonably slow for a model that seemed to fit in memory.
Colin Gill says, here's an interesting one for you, Dave. Is it possible to have 2 AI models have a conversation with each other? Moreover, if you had 3 AI models in a committee-type conversation to arrive at a decision, is that possible?
Yeah, I don't know how you would script it, but I'm sure it can be done pretty easily if you got API keys to a couple different services. I've seen somebody did a video, this is 2 years ago now, where they had really early LLMs and they used voice to text or text to voice to have the voices, and they were kind of talking with one another, and then they reached trying to convince each other that they were the real one and the other one was the AI, and it was interesting.
Well, I don't know, last week or two, you and Rob and I were goofing around on a call one night, and you got the voice stuff working. So you had an AI model talking in your voice.
Yeah.
And the 3 of us were having a conversation with your AI voice, and that was kind of fun just to fool around with. We weren't throwing 3 different AI models at each other, but it gets into some weird space when you do that.
Yeah, especially weird for me because it's my voice. It's like...
Somyi, doesn't the Orin Nano or Super have 8 gigabytes?
It depends which spec you get. I think there are multiple ones. There may be an 8 gigabyte version of it. I think there's a 2 gigabyte version, but check the specs to be sure.
Yeah. E-Waste Redux. Hey, Dave, question. I was under the impression that Olama supported tensor splitting. Oh, here we go back to that again. Sorry, I should have got this in different order. This should allow for a single model to encompass the memory spread across 2 GPUs. Is that correct?
Yeah, so if I had a model that was bigger than the 48 gigabytes that I can fit into one, you can split the model and run part on each GPU, and it does slow things down. It's not as fast as all being on one GPU, but at least you can still run it out of video RAM. So I have not tried it. I've not configured it. I've only heard recently, like in the last 20 minutes, that it happens with Olama. So.
And can you split it between a GPU and a CPU then, like that other system was?
I believe so,
okay,
yeah.
Okay, yeah. Rif Kiamil, hey, how you doing? Mind if I ask how you're finding Gemma 3? Are you performance testing it or using it to run local workloads? So what are you doing with it?
I was just tinkering with it and playing with it and seeing what kind of answers I was getting. And it seemed like of the models that I had tinkered with locally, it seemed to be the best. So I have no objective data other than it seemed to be the best.
Yeah, Dave's putzing around. Yeah.
And it's top of the leaderboard right now at Olama, I think.
Okay. That helps too then. Yeah, that's some feedback. Unglaube Chuberlieber. Thanks. What is your opinion on unified memory?
I think it's really cool as long as the access is anywhere near GPU speeds, because if you look at the access to memory on a 4090, I don't know what it is, 384 bits, 512 bits, it's a massive bus. And I'm pretty sure that the unified memory bus is not that wide, but I'm not certain on the Apple. Like Apple is the most common case. I've got a GMK Nook box here with 128 gigabytes of unified memory that I'm going to do an episode on shortly on Dave's Garage. So watch for that, and we'll find out what the unified memory performance is like on a non-Apple product.
And what do you use to test that?
I'll probably run the same model.
Yeah,
I'll run the same model on both a Mac with 128 gigabytes and on the PC with 128 gigabytes and see how they compare.
Okay. Now, the other thing in the intro here into this whole episode, you're talking about the use of drive letters and that you can map drives using the GUID right into folder content stuff. Is that something that's... Do you do that at all in any of your systems?
I have done it just to see if it worked, but it's not something I normally do. I'm content with drive letters on Windows and UNC paths. Mostly I use UNC paths, which is the / server name / shares / path. Because everything I care about in Windows, I keep on an as opposed to locally generally anyway. So,
yeah, and you're in both systems so much that they're both pretty darn familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Heinz Meyer says, hey, where can I get that Tempest Arcade AI project, please?
GitHub.com/DavePL and look for Tempest AI is the project.
Cool. So folks can actually have access to
download
that.
it, run it, train Tempest on your own. It's not very well documented or supported, but all my code's there.
So is the Tempest code there then as well, where you can play Tempest?
You need to have your own Tempest ROMs because I can't publish the ROMs.
That's right. Okay. Yeah. Those are available. Following Jaw. Dave, could you do a video on programming in assembly?
I have. I've done a couple. Just dig through the archives because I think they actually are pretty decent episodes.
Yeah.
I do Hello World in assembly. We do some other stuff in assembly. The world's smallest program.
Oh, that was going to be the smallest PC one too, or whatever you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've done prime sieves in assembly. And so, there's a fair bit of assembly content over the years.
Yeah. Birdie Blob. Dave, can you explain why USB support has been so problematic for WSL? Why the need for the weird USB IPD service?
I don't know, because if you think about it, it's basically with WSL2, the modern version, it's running on a hypervisor, and the Windows hypervisor supports device pass-through. So it would be really cool if you just pass a USB device through to WSL2. You can't. You have to use USB IPD, as he mentions, and set it up on both sides. And I've done it, but it's complicated and annoying. So why it's not simpler and just, hey, here's a checkbox for which ports you want to pass through to WSL2? I wish it were that simple. But it is not currently. So
yeah, not currently. There you go. Yeah. Stephen Jack says TPM's required to boot BitLocker. As if I want that. Why BitLocker?
Well, because if somebody steals your laptop, they don't want to just. They could just pop the drive out, plug it into their PC, and read all your data. But if you have BitLocker, it's encrypted, and it's encrypted to the TPM in the laptop, so it can't be read without the laptop, and the laptop won't let you in without the right password, and you can't unlock the BitLocker volume without the right decryption key and password, so that's why.
Yeah. Oh, we had a computer at work that kept failing for some reason, and that would get BitLocked all the time. And we're phoning IT, and finally we just said, what's that number again? We just wrote it down and stuck it on a big label on the machine. Just got tired of calling IT, so the BitLocker code was right on the machine. Only for about 6 or 7 months. A couple more questions here. Ranch Hand. Hey, Howard. Did you hear about Pinball recently being ported?
No, it's ported to what? Tell me more.
Yeah.
Reach out. Let me know what's going on.
Don't
I heard nothing.
Back. Yeah. Let us know.
You can't just tease me like that.
Yeah. I was going to say we could Google it, and then that reminds me of a comment you made a couple times, like sort of ChatGPT and this stuff now is sort of, in some ways, replacing Google or almost an improved version,
I
right?
can't remember. Well, I should say I can't remember. It hasn't been like that many months. But not recently have I Googled anything. I just grok it because it's cheap and free and easy and fast, and it gets you the answer you want without having to scan through all the ads and search results. So I just go to Grok and crank my answers into there. ChatGPT, same deal if you got a membership. So yeah.
Last question here. Java 15. Is it possible to put a link to your other channel under the More section? And by other channel, I'm assuming... Well, no, I'm not sure which way they're going.
Because go both ways, right?
This actually came on the Dave's Attic channel. Can you put a link to that other channel, the one with 1 million subs? I've noticed other channels that have multiple channels and also don't add the links. Do you know why that is? You know what folks are doing when they got these two channels and some they keep them separate, or are they not?
No, I don't know. Mine is just ignorance and a mistake that I didn't link it. They should each link to each other, you would think. So
yeah.
I will do that.
But you do have two channels.
I do. And you should subscribe to this one because there's only 40,000 subscribers versus 1 million. And we have big plans.
And there's still
so
folks
subscribe.
every time that realize, I didn't realize it was another channel. It's like, well, we've kind of been saying that for, I think this is episode 38. So It's been a while, but that's
We've
fine.
mentioned it.
Yeah. One last thing, and then I'll pass it back to you. So I for some reason, well, again, this OpenAI stuff and ChatGPT and all these things, I haven't been using too much that I haven't had a real need for it. I use a little bit of it at work. So I thought, geez, I should try to do something interesting here. So I thought, well, I went on to, it must have been Grok. And I said, well, tell me some interesting fact in the computer field relevant to this week. And so it gave me back an answer. And then I realized it said, end of October, early November, because...
that's when the model snapshotted. Yeah.
So I was like, oh, well, that was a neat fact, but darn it, it's not the right date. So I told it for a specific date, punched it in again, and I'm happy to reveal the fun fact for this week in computer history. Get a load of this, and I'm just going to read right what it said here. Okay, here's a fun computer-related fact relevant to June 4th in history, because we're recording this on June 4th. On June 4th, 1975, 50 years ago,
wow,
the first microcomputer kit, the Altair 8800, went on sale.
Really?
Yeah.
Did not. That's awesome. I've got an Altair.
Yeah.
I didn't know it's 50 years old too. That's amazing.
Yeah. And then the other thing that taught for me is went on sale. So like they reduced the price on this day.
No, I think they started selling it. I'm guessing.
But
right?
in my head, I'm like, the Altair they began selling the Altair, or it's like, it went on sale. Oh, there was a price drop on 50 years ago. But,
as a little mind blindness story before I wrap it up here, there was a party that I didn't know about, a surprise party for my 1 millionth subscriber. My wife said that the kids were going to take us out for dinner for our anniversary, which we hit the 31st anniversary on the same day that I hit the 1 million subs. So when we got back from Niagara Falls, which is where we'd gone, we were supposed to meet the kids at a restaurant and just have dinner and stuff like that. So I get there, and a whole bunch of people there. Everything's cool. The only thing is, it took me about 20 minutes to realize my wife knew about it in advance, because I thought everybody had surprised us somehow. But then I figured it out.
What was so for 20 minutes you thought she was equally as surprised?
Yeah, I thought, look at all those people surprised me and Nikki. Yeah.
And
but no.
Do you know what it was that twigged 20 minutes later? Or?
No, I don't know what clued me in eventually, but I mean, I think it was something to do. She mentioned about organizing it or booking the room or something like that. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right.
Yep. Anyways, that's the questions for this episode, and we had to miss one last week because you folks were on you and your wife were on your anniversary, and I think a couple weeks before that there was something else. So it's been 2 weeks between the last few, but we'll be back on schedule starting after this.
Yeah, I did the Lex Friedman podcast 2 weeks ago, so that's where I was then.
Yeah.
That was why we didn't have an episode, so keep an eye open for that. Yeah. I don't know when it's going to come out, several weeks, a couple months. We'll see. I don't know how far behind he is in the production process, but that'll be interesting. So thanks for joining us here in Shop Talk today, and in the meantime and in between time, we hope to see you next time, right here in Dave's Attic. This little chair will be waiting for one of you, and a rocking chair for another who likes to rock, and a big armchair for two to curl up in. All next time on Dave's Garage.